I'm Doug D. Douglas.
And I'm Wolf Wampler.
And welcome to a special obituary report. This episode marks the 791st anniversary of St. Francis's death.
And so, we will travel back in time to report on this death. To the car!
To the car! We are now going to Wolf Wampler, who is reporting live from the woods in Assisi, Italy. How are we, Wolf? What are the latest updates on this situation?
Thanks, Mr. Douglas. We are well. As you can see, I'm now in the woods of Assisi, where Francis' body was found at around 8 a.m., right around the stone. He died of a condition called stigmata, which was first discovered by one of his friends on a retreat he went to. Stigmata is a condition where people have wounds across their body that hurt a lot. Same condition that Jesus Christ had about 1,200 years ago while being crucified.
Stigmata
Caused Francis to leave early from his retreat, and once he returned home, he was almost completely blind. Francis' friends wanted to accompany him at his home, but he insisted that he was fine. Sadly, only 5 days later, Francis was found here dead by one of his visiting friends, who claims he was going down the river to fetch some water to drink. Anyway, I believe his body's still lying here for some reason. And if you follow me this way— oh! There it is! Poor thing! Ah! Wait, you're not Francis' body, you're a peasant! It scared me. They must have taken Francis' body when I wasn't looking. Haha. Back to you, Douglas. Haha.
Thanks, Wolf. That gave us all a fright for a second. Now here's some things you should know about Francis. He was born in 1182 and grew up with his father, who was a cloth merchant with dealings in France. He had a good education, but did not become a scholar, so he spent most of his teenage and young adult years just enjoying and observing life. A tragedy occurred when he was 20 years old, though, as he was captured during a war between the Italian states. He was then released back to Assisi, though a short time after, another instance occurred, as Francis became seriously ill while traveling on an expedition. While ill, Francis said he heard the voice of God calling to him to return to Assisi. It was at this moment where Francis experienced a change of heart that would affect the rest of his life. After returning to Assisi, Francis devoted his time to prayer and reflection on the Christian faith. One day he heard Jesus' voice speaking to him from a crucifix in the church of St. Damien and telling him to rebuild the house of God. Francis then started the mission by giving away his possessions and leaving his greedy father. He started to preach a message of prayer and poverty to the people of Assisi and supporting himself by begging and performing manual labor. It was these examples of Francis' selfless and generous character that attracted many of his followers. He became popular fast and within a few years was recognized by officials of the Catholic Church. Francis became aware of this and quickly sought approval from Pope Innocent II for his group to become a new order, the Franciscan order, and for him to have the right to preach. Francis smartly did this to clear up any possible suspicions or concerns of his new order. Francis referred to his followers as the Friars Minor, stressing that they could always be of service to all others. He drew up many rules which were designed to help his followers, living a simple life, a life similar to Jesus and his apostles. With the help of Francis, a similar association was then established for a woman by Clare of Assisi in 1212. These women were expected to follow the same rules as the Friars Minor. A few years later, Francis traveled to Egypt to meet with Sultan Al-Kamil to attempt to convert him and his people from Islam to Christianity. Although the Sultan respected Francis, he refused to convert to Christianity. On the way back, though, Francis got a chance to go get a tour of some of the holy cities in the Arabian Peninsula, such as Jerusalem. When Francis returned, he was met with turmoil and as thousands of new people joined the Friars Minor, but the lack of comprehensive set of rules caused confusion among his followers. Francis had to then clear up the confusion by making a new set of rules and trying to pass it on to his people for the next few years. One of Francis' most memorable moments during his final years was when he passed a tableau of the Nativity during Christmas to reinforce the Christmas message to the viewers. He will be remembered for all time as a passionate Christian who helped to remind all of us of Jesus' true intentions, again through the words and actions. Back to the Doug D. Douglas show after this.
We're
We're now here with a special guest, Conrad Cunningham, a special friend of Francis, who we met a few weeks ago. Over the past few weeks, we told him who we were and why we are here. We taught him the English language, and he promised he wouldn't tell anyone about us. He is here now on this tragic day to share his thoughts and relationship with Francis. How are you doing, Conrad?
Very, very sad. Francis was a good friend of mine. He holds a special place in my heart.
I see. Now, do you want to tell us a little more about your friendship and how Francis was with your personal experiences?
Okay. I had started to become good friends with Francis right before he started to preach his message of prayer and poverty. The first time I actually met him, though, was the time I baptized him. He was one cute boy. I still remember holding him and baptizing him as Giovanni. That was his original name, you know. He later changed his name to Francis, but never tell me why. Anyway, years later, I was priest at same local church when he'd walk in one day and tell me about his vision of Jesus and the message he wanted to spread to his people of Assisi. I was amazed by what he had told me, and it sounded very appealing. So I became his first friar or follower. I helped him spread awareness to the people of Assisi, and his message quickly became popular. He was a very smart man, Francis. When church started to find out about him, he smartly sought approval from Pope Innocent III for his group to become a new religious order and have the rights to preach. From then on, Francis got more and more busy, and it came to the point where I was seeing him only once every few weeks now. It was like this for a while until I accompanied him on his trip to Egypt to try to convince Muslims to convert. Even though we didn't get our mission accomplished, the Sultan at Egypt respected Francis a lot, just like I and many other people did. We also got to see holy cities, which was nice. After we returned, Francis was met with a mess during his absence. Thousands of new people joined the Friars Minor, but the lack of a comprehensive set of rules caused confusion among his followers. It was during this time where I saw Francis's true dedication and work ethic, as he solved this big problem ahead of him in a shorter time than anyone had imagined. The last time I saw him, though, was when he first received stigmata. It was during this time where I ran into you.
Wow, so sad. I can tell by the story how much Francis meant to you and to others. I'm going to ask one more thing. What is one thing you will always remember about Francis?
Definitely his selfless character. He cared for everyone. Not only did he preach a message of prayer and poverty, but he supported himself by performing manual labor and begging. He also donated all his possessions to poor before he became a preacher. These are the reasons why the poor loved Francis. I'll remember a certain memory was when we went to Egypt, where Francis did not drink water in 3 days until he found a well with a limited amount of water. He saw a peasant from a far distance and ran to give him water. He almost passed out that day until he found somebody to help him. This is what truly made Francis special.
Wow, Conrad, very touching story, but it seems like we're out of time. Thank you for having an interview with me.
No problem. And remember,
Don't worry, I won't tell anyone about you.
Why are you wearing your clothes?
I have to go back to 2017,
We have one more interview.
but I'm already dressed.
We have one more interview, have to.
Fine.
Think of a person.
I don't know.
How about that guy?
Wait!
What?
That's the person who stole my clothes.
We are now here with the final interview for the special obituary show. We have here a peasant. Even though he was terrified of us and still hates us for hurting him, I thought he would be a good candidate to interview. Last 2 months, yes, 2 months, we tried to convince him that we won't harm him anymore if he did this interview with us. And yes, I did teach him English. You know, back then, peasants, they aren't educated at all. And finally got him to teach him a few things. And here he is. How are you doing, peasant?
Bet for sure.
Now explain to me, because you must have heard of the great man who everyone knows in Assisi, Francis, who had recently passed 2 months ago. Tell me what your thoughts are about him and what you do know about him.
Well, I want to say thank you for the last 2 months for all your kindness and hospitality, unlike Wolf, who treated me in a very bad way. Wolf should not be doing this. The great Francis himself taught that everyone should be kind to the poor and to animals. He taught to respect those who are living lives of simplicity and to those who are living a life with devotion to God. I've always felt bad and not treated well until Francis came and preached this message. I pray 6 times a day and thank God for bringing a man like Francis onto the earth so he can preach this message of love, simplicity, and prayer. I am fortunate enough to read these great values of the Bible every night. I always tried to be Christian, but it was Francis' message that really got me inspired and interested in the message of Jesus Christ. Wolf just don't get it. He not only treats me in a very bad way, he also refused to do this interview. Francis taught to respect the poor as he himself became poor, and to love all. Not about going around whipping peasants and tease them, they'll tell landowner. Not what Christianity should be about. Wolf was mad that I steal his clothes, but I was in desperate situation and just found it on the ground because it was very cold. And Francis taught that it is okay to borrow when you are desperate. Anyway, I don't hate him like you said before, because both Francis and Jesus taught us to love all. Francis would understand what I'm trying to say, because his dad had very similar attitude to Wolf, and that is why Francis left his father, because of the attitude that his dad had.
Wow, peasant. I'm so touched. And I'm very sorry how Wolf has been treating you. Don't worry about him. Later he will get kicked off our show. I always admired Francis, but what inspired me to pray frequently, love all, and live a life of simplicity was you. I see how well you're following Francis' message, and I greatly respect that. When I get back to 2017, I will be sure to live a life just like you.
Thank you for everything, Dad.
No, thank you, peasant. Wolf, why are you here? I thought you went back to 2017 already.
Oh, I'd just like to apologize to the peasant. Peasant, what I did was wrong, and I'm sorry. This trip covering St. Francis truly inspired me to be a better person. Do you forgive me?
Okay. Okay.
We have come to the end of this episode.
I would like to thank the whole crew for letting and making this happen.